My name is Syed Ahmed. I run a small lobbying and campaigning organisation, a research organisation called Energy for London. And so I thought I'd give you a perspective of why, very linked to James's talk about the London carbon offset policy, because I used to work at the GLA back in, I had a year and a half under Ken, a year and a half under Boris. A year and a half under Boris means you want to move quite quickly, and I did to help set up Energy for London. And I was then as their decentralised energy lead, helping on things like CHP and heat works. But part of the reason I wanted to go to the GLA was find out the wonderful world of planning. And I have to be careful because we have London's leading planning person, Nikki Gavel, in the front row. So everything I say will probably be wrong, but I desperately want to find out about planning because that's where I saw the future in terms of making sure that we set out low carbon cities, low carbon neighbourhoods in the future. So just to say, I had a quick look just before I came in at the 2009 London Plan, the draft London Plan I helped write. And if you remember, many of you should remember that I see lots of young faces here as well. We used to have a policy called zero carbon homes. I was not doing anything particularly clever. What I was doing is seeing that there was lots of good work going on at the national level with zero carbon homes through something called the Zero Carbon Hub. It set a trajectory for all developments, or at least all residential development, to be zero carbon by 2016. London already had some very good ambitious projects, policies within the London Plan, and we wanted to beef those up to make sure that we met zero carbon in 2016, but set ourselves a trajectory knowing that London was already doing quite well. But, and taking colleagues' points beforehand, knowing full well, doing a zero carbon development is very difficult, and delivering a zero carbon development in London is even more challenging. And therefore, the cash in lieu, the offset policy, was integrated as almost a kind of like third tier, which we didn't really envisage being used in any significant way. Where it really kicked in, of course, is when George Osborne abolished the zero carbon homes policy in half a sentence. So if you're minded to, go and look at the 2015 budget statement, and 7-8 years worth of work by probably many colleagues in this room was removed within half a sentence in the Treasury. So then the question came down, would that policy that was kept in the London Plan be maintained? The mayor at the time was Boris, and so with some London Assembly members, we started asking Boris whether or not he'd kowtow to the Chancellor, his ex-Willington Club friend, or whether or not he'd actually want to implement the London Plan offset policy. And luckily, in the SBG on housing, just before the 2016 election, that policy was cemented in there. So, is it ideal? Because it comes under a lot of criticism. The way I see it is at the moment in time, you have to be pragmatic. Offsetting has been used in policy ever since people who are familiar with the renewable obligation. ROCs are a form of offsetting, you have a buyout. The same with LEX under the climate change levy. The same, of course, actually, it's inherent in terms of the EU emissions trading scheme. And also another thing, George Osborne abolished the carbon reduction commitment. So an element of buyout, an element of offsetting has always been there. Why? Because many of these policies are determined by economists within government, and they want to try and deliver these policies and carbon at the least price. And the key thing they want to do is bear in mind energy users, because all of these things feature on our bills. And the environmental element of an energy bill is increasing. And for many in this room, that might not be a significant proportion of their energy costs on a day-to-day basis, but for many people, 11% of the UK households are in fuel poverty, and they will see their bills increase as a consequence, as we load on more policies to reduce carbon. So that pragmatism has to be inherent in terms of policymakers about how they do things. So very quickly, finally, just to say it's very timely, this event, because only last Thursday, the GLA published their first survey of their offsetting policies, of the offsetting policy and the way it's been implemented by boroughs. And for me, it's a really good first stage. So if you go to the GLA's website and look under environment publications, you can see that there. And there is money coming into boroughs. Would this be the ideal policy to implement? Should we be really delivering zero carbon buildings? Of course we should do. But in a time of austerity, when there are hardly any boroughs with an energy team of more than 1 or 2 people, this is a valuable source of funds, as James is pointing out. And one thing that the policy also allows is up to 10% of the funds can be utilised to bring in staff to actually implement the policy if the team is not there. And so as we see funds increase, and as we see that the £95 per tonne kick in, and that if the policy extends to all development, we need to see how we use those funds more in a cleverer way, in a better way, working between GLA and the boroughs. So this is a powerful resource to use, but one of the things I've been guessing that there is a time limitation. Developers will be aided by people in this room to make sure they can deliver zero carbon buildings. We will decarbonise the grid, which will make the impact of buildings even less so. Heating issues will eventually be solved with some zero carbon solutions. I do not know what they are, and nor does anybody else really, but we will find some routes. So there is a window of opportunity for using these carbon offset funds in the best way possible over probably the next 5 to 7 years. And so that's something I'll turn to possibly our question and answer panel. But just to say, it's not ideal, but as ever in policy making, you have to be pragmatic and consider the whole effects of what these policies can do. Carbon offsetting policy in the London plan is an inherently good thing. Could it be better? Yes, it could.